Right. Okay. Gender, human construct. But are there corollaries? I mean, is there evidence of what we might think of as gender in other species?
Yeah, I mean, like that was, we talked a little bit about, lizards and fish and things like that. And like it's interesting that like we see a lot of very human responses to
Mm.
gender as well. A great example just off the top of my head is oh gosh, I'm pretty sure they're baboons. It's a species of, I remember reading this study for a while. Like with this, they have like the male hierarchy where you have like the big bad male that gets to have all the sex all the time, and then you have the little scrawny male that doesn't. And like the little scrawny male would see one of the females walk by and she's clearly an estrus and she's all sorts of engorged in all the right places, and he would go scamper off behind a tree and masturbate, and it's very clear by the timing of this situation that like he is fantasizing, he's responding to the stimuli
Mm.
and moving on this way. And so you see in that situation not only a demonstration of social hierarchy and also a demonstration of animal sexual behavior, and also a demonstration of gender and gender signaling and like what type of sex characteristics these creatures are looking for and when they matter. Like you can see all sorts of corollaries with these sorts of things. You can also see that humans tend to be very patriarchal in the
Mm.
way that we tend to view societies or tend to think that we should. Again, there's lots of cultures out there that are not patriarchal, but whatever, our Western culture
Right.
decided that
That
that's
that
not real.
British notion of anthropology,
Uh-huh,
yeah,
exactly, yes.
trekking through
And
the
so
jungle with your machete. Got it.
right, right. And so but like when we look at out in the animal kingdom, we see some of our closest relatives, bonobos, are completely matriarchal. They're also almost entirely bisexual, and they handle sex in a completely different way. They don't just have sex for reproduction; they have sex for fun all the time. They do it for to when they're fighting, they have sex, and then that's how they resolve the fight, and then they have sex to celebrate the fact that they resolved the fight, and then they have sex to say hello and sex to say goodbye. Um, and we see and that's a whole other tangent where we see animals having sex clearly just for pleasure a lot. That's not just a reproductive thing as well,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that leads you down the rabbit hole of understanding what gender is and isn't, because not only do we see them having sex for pleasure, that we see oh gosh, we see some of these animals are seasonal breeders, which means they can only actually get pregnant at one particular time, and they're deliberately having sex outside of their breeding season. By the way, the opposite of a seasonal breeder is a continuous breeder, and that is the worst descriptor for humans I know.
Yeah, I don't like that term.
Yeah, it's awful. Oh, but we see also animals that are having sex that could not possibly lead to reproduction. I'm talking anal sex, oral sex,
Mhm.
non-penetrative genital stimulation, which is the fancy biology way to say masturbation. We see it all in the animal kingdom, and that also reflects gender roles, especially when you combine it with the fact that we see a lot of homosexuality and bisexuality out in the animal kingdom. So like, yeah, dude, like if you're getting your whole concept of sex and sexuality from the Discovery Channel, and it's like, oh yeah, these guys did this reproduce with that, and they did a little dance, and then out popped a baby, hooray. um you're kind of missing the point of how
Mm.
beautifully weird this whole thing is. And it reminds me, there's this stupid, it's not even a joke, real, just as like a kind of a thought experiment story in biology about this, about like the Martians come down and they meet with the world's best scientists, and they're all exchanging notes about each other's biology, and they're learning about how they work and everything. And finally the question comes up, well, how do you reproduce, how do you make more Martians? And the Martians are like, oh, I'll show you, and then you show us how to make more humans, it'll be great. And so all the scientists get up there with their clipboards and they're watching, and these two Martians get next to each other and they vibrate a little bit, and one jumps up on the other one's shoulders, and they honk each other's noses, and then some steam comes out of their ears, and then poof, out pops a new Martian right there, just right away. And the humans go, oh my God, that's incredible. And they're taking all sorts of notes. And the Martians say, okay, now you show us. And so a male and a female human go and they have sex in a bed. And then they come out, and all the Martian scientists are like, okay, where's the new
And
human?
where's the human?
And yeah, and the humans go, well, that takes about 9 months. And the Martians say, well, then why did they seem like they were in such a hurry? And the idea here is just to think about the fact of, why do we have sex the way we do when it's,
Yeah.
really, it could just be such a simple thing. and it feels good and it's fun, that the concept that something feels good and just is enjoyable is kind of difficult when you're
And
talking about
pleasure
science.
matters.
It's
Yeah.
it's not something that we can measure, and it's not something that we can put a ruler next to and say, okay, it happens this much and this time, and like it's
Mhm.
not a quantifiable thing. So it's hard to write about it in science that these animals did this for fun. They did it because it felt good. They did it because they wanted to, not because this was the male and this was the female and they did XYZ thing. And we see that every single time.
Biological imperative and their,
Exactly. Yeah.
inalterable drives and
It's just something that they wanted to do. And how the fuck do you write a paper about that? And so you don't get that a lot of the time when you're learning biology. You
mm.
don't see that. And so, and this is a fun thing to think about. There's a huge fucking biological question about why females have orgasms. The female orgasm is a huge question. What's the evolutionary significance of that? How does it make any sense? There's actually papers arguing that maybe it just exhausts the woman so much that she's more likely to lay still and allow for fertilization. And there's all these, trying to come up with reasons. And I get it. I understand why you want to do that, because science is reductionist, and we really
Sure.
want to try to boil things down. But sometimes shit just feels good. And sometimes the mechanism is, I don't fucking know right now. And it's okay to say, I don't know. And it's okay to be surprised. And that's something that we should really be more, fun with when we talk about science in general.